Ah, boy, what's up? What's up? What it do? What it do? Top of the morning, live from Washington, D.C. Freedom man. Freedom man. I want to send a big shout out to Convict Inc., the channel on YouTube, Curator Rob. I think he presents a lot of honest information. And when I say honest, this is what I mean. A lot of his information is factual. I believe. I believe a lot of his information is hand. We all know what I mean by firsthand. I mean, he was there in many events that he talked about. I was there in many events that I talk about. And in some of the events that I was not there or was not present, the person or the subject that I'm interviewing just so happened to be there. See, it be dudes like that that leave certain comments that just make me cuss their ass out early in the morning. But I'm gonna block you, bro. Cause I actually like cussing you stupid motherfuckers out. Nah, I don't have on no real clothes under this, so it ain't probably cold enough for this big ass jacket. But it was wet and chilly out there this morning, so instead of me being cold, I just would rather be prepared. Yeah, I got him out of here. So anyway, Rob from Convict Inc. channel, he brought up some some aspects of he brought up some aspects of the ABDC conflict. That's what I'm gonna call it. I mean, we could probably call it a war, and not be exaggerating. But I always say conflict. The people who say war is people that make it bigger than what it really was. Let me give you a little bit of my breakdown as far as on the live video, on the live stream, because I don't have all my facts with me. Like when I do my video, I be having my court cases right here, my history book right here, my personal notes right here. But I'm going off the top of the head now. I appreciate it. I was about to check him, but you got to him first. Hold on. What you talking about, Jamal? You was about to check who? Get him up out of here. Luke Man, Walib Salam. Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kabir. Have your mother been to a Diddy party? Do your mother charge for her performances at a Diddy party? May Allah accept our fasting and worship. You are caught, man. All right, so anyway, I appreciate Rob for answering the question. And I kind of had a feeling his explanation was going to be what he said now. I'm not disputing what Rob said. Excuse me, from the dirty white boy perspective. I was even cool with dirty white boys when I was locked up. I did a lot of business. And when I say a lot of business, I'm gonna start explaining myself a little bit more. When I was in the penitentiary, few years before I got out, I used to be a guy that participated in the prison economy. So I sold tobacco. I even sold narcotics at one point in time. I sold stamps. I sold coffee. I mean, I did what you had to do to get by. I made a couple dollars. Like, people who remember me, not from my younger years when we was wild in Lorton, where I used to just sell weed, but in the feds, tobacco sold more than heroin at one point in time. Now, I done sold junk and everything else that everybody else has sold if you're a hustler. Most DC dudes gonna sell something. I mean, all the way down to strips. Let's just be 100 with it. But I probably made the most money hustling in the prison system selling tobacco. Tobacco sell more than anything, it always sell. The dirty white boys, the Nietas, who my homies got into it with in Lewisburg, but we was cool with them in Lee County before my homies got into it with them in Lewisburg. Shout out to my man SB. SB had to sling that knife up there, and a couple other homies. What other group did we deal with? Mostly the dirty white boys. The dirty white boys bought almost all of my tobacco in Lee County. And Rob made a point that was funny to me, because I am one of the DC guys that when I came to the federal system, I thought that every white boy was an AB. He said that that was kind of funny. I don't know if anybody that really been in this prison stuff, in a real institution or dangerous institution, the United States Penitentiary, I don't know if they caught that one, but a lot of guys that came to the feds from Lorton, we ain't know what an AB was. Like, if an AB walked up to us and handed us a knife, we wouldn't know if he was a friend or foe. So to all of us that was ignorant, and I'm only representing for those of us that was ignorant, some of us weren't ignorant, but for those of us that was ignorant, Rob had made a good point. Every white boy that looked like he could be about that action, he was an AB to us at one point in time. Now, and I'm sure many of us have gotten educated. I'm in my 40s now. I know exactly what an AB, a dirty white boy, a sack, a independent. I know what all of them are now, but when we got off that Lorton bus, and there's a difference in us, those of us that got off the Lorton bus in the 90s and those that got off the Lorton bus in the 70s, or those that get off a bus right now in 2025, there's a difference in the prisoner. For those that don't know, DC Blacks is not a gang. DC Blacks is not even a real thing. Let's get that straight. DC Blacks came from the BOP saying, who the hell are those problem inmates? They keep calling themselves Moors. But when they realized that they couldn't call us all Moors, they start saying the DC Blacks, the DC Blacks. Other groups began to say the DC Blacks. So, Rob made a mention on one of his videos, good video too, when the DC Blacks came to the federal system after Lorton closed. Remember, DC guys didn't start coming to the federal system when Lorton closed. When Lorton closed, another group or batch of DC guys came. Now remember, Lorton is a place in Virginia that about 8 different prisons that were a part of the DC Department of Corrections, the Lorton Reformatory, spread out all over. Youth Center 1, Youth Center 2, Marginal, Medium, Minimum, The Wall, The Hill. I might be missing one, because they had the women at Medium. Oh, Aquan. Aquan, one of the most deadliest joints in history. So, before Lorton was built, the workhouse, right? Lorton began being built in the early 1900s. Theodore Roosevelt, President of the United States, which means that this was a federal operation. For everybody who want to keep arguing me, Theodore Roosevelt is the one that told them to start building Lorton. The president, not the mayor. There was no mayor in DC. There was no DC nothing. So, before Lorton opened, anybody who served prison time from the Washington, D.C. court system was sent to the federal prison system. Y'all do know that. What I mean by the federal prison system, they went to Leavenworth or they went to Atlanta. There was nowhere else to go. All right? In fact, when Lorton opened, the very first prisoners that came to Lorton came from where? Atlanta United States Penitentiary and Leavenworth Penitentiary. They brought back some DC offenders. And guess what? People don't know this. Most of the offenders that came from Atlanta Penitentiary and Leavenworth Penitentiary that were DC offenders, they were of the Caucasian race. Did y'all know that? Most of the dudes who first opened Lorton at the workhouse, I'm talking about this little farm that they had that became Aquan. Aquan is still standing now. It's called the Workhouse Museum. The majority of those people that came in on barges were white men. They were not black men. So the first DC guys, DC prisoners to go to the federal system were majority white men from Washington, D.C. In fact, I'm gonna tell you a little known fact. In the 60s, in the 50s and the 60s, as Lorton began to transition to more black people, people of minority, because remember, there's always been white people in Lorton. It may only been one or two when I was there. But there are articles of riots, race riots, nigger words being used in Lorton, where most of the people in the dorm were white people. I can go back and I'm gonna go back in history and I'm gonna show y'all some of this. People that cares anyway. I'm gonna show y'all some of this, that there were dorms in Lorton, in a part of Lorton that's called the Central Facility. Lorton guys, DC guys, we call that joint the Hill. There are newspaper articles out of the Washington Post, a major publication from the Washington, D.C. area, that documents race riots in Lorton. Some guys that can't go back to even the 70s in history or oral folklore don't even know that there were dorms, completely white dorms in Lorton before. They don't know that there were race riots in Lorton before. So let me not give up too much of that content, because that's something we're gonna go into that don't have nothing to do with the ABs or the federal system. I just painted this picture for you all to know that DC guys have been sent to the feds long before Lorton closed. Now, I got arrested in 1993. I'm a 90s guy that, you know, unfortunately fell into the criminal justice system, right? But I'm gonna go way back to the 70s for a second. Earl Coleman Bay, Big Naughty, Lulu, Fly, Eddie Mathis, Big Naughty, Punchy, Terry Trice, Donnie Perkins, Big Reds. All these guys went into the federal system, although Big Reds went into the federal system later because they had them trapped out at the Baltimore Penitentiary, which is really the Maryland Penitentiary. But for guys that come out of the system, we call it the Baltimore Penitentiary. Nevertheless, when these guys came into the feds, Willie Strickland, when these guys came into the feds, right, Lorton was still open. You get what I'm saying? So don't forget that the first batch of dudes that came into the feds from Washington, D.C. wasn't even these Lorton guys that they talk about. Now, that batch of guys that came into the feds when Cadillac and them came in, there was the Moors Science Temple of America. Shout out to St. Louis. Shout out to Rush Bay. Shout out to Jerry Lewis Bay, all them guys out of St. Louis. I don't know the guys' names that came out of New Orleans. I don't know the guys' names that came out of Chicago. And I cannot leave out Baltimore. Baltimore had a strong Moors presence in the federal system and in the state system. But those guys did not put that down, what they put down, as a geographical thing. The feds gave the beef to DC. But that really should have been classified as a Moorish takeover. Like, shout out to the mighty Moors. I'm a Sunni Muslim, but I know what type of impact the Moor Science Temple of America had on not only the criminal justice system, but also had on black nationalism, black revolutionaryism. You can't mention any of these things without mentioning the Moors, bro. Now, I'm not talking about the Moors that took over Spain. I know that they may have a beef with me saying that, but I'm talking about the Moors that came out them jails. They changed the structure of prison. Let me correct something else I said before I forget it. I say that no other geographical areas went to war with the AB and stood like DC did in regards to black and white conflict in the federal system. Now, I did say while I was saying that there were men from many cities that stood on this, but no one city, other than the District of Columbia, said it's us against y'all. Let's work. But I spoke to Fly this morning, and Fly said, yeah, the guy Rob, he spoke a lot of truth, y'all. He said, but you said no other guys went against the AB, which is me he was talking to. He said, you right and you wrong. I said, how am I right and wrong? He said, DC was the guys that took the vanguard and the flag and said, let's rock and roll. He said, but you already pointed out that most of those guys was Moors. So that was really the Moors saying, let's go, let's rock and roll. However, being as though that those guys were Moors and most of those guys were from Washington, D.C., he mentioned that guys from Ohio, he mentioned these guys specifically in the 90s. I ain't talking about the 70s and the 80s yet, but in the 90s, when Lil Man, shout out to Henry Lil Man James, when Lil Man put the work in Marion because they believed that it was an ABDC war again, and again, they didn't attack ABs. They attacked any white dude that was on the yard that day, and everybody know that was mostly the dirty white boys, and I believe Rob knows this as well, so I ain't dissing Rob, sneak dissing Rob, or sneak dissing the white boys, or the white guys, but Lil Man and them broke jaws, broke legs, broke arms, they punished shit. But that wasn't just DC. They put it out that DC did that. That technically was a black coalition. DC led it because it was the homies, Lil Man, Bucky Fields, rest in peace, Lonell Nunn, Murder Inc. case. Those were the DC dudes that was stepping, but there were 2 dudes from Ohio, there was 1 dude from California, and there was 1 dude from Detroit, blacks, the same black. I believe his name was D. He caught a body in Beaumont. I think he ended up getting a life sentence for it, but they tried to give him the death penalty. So, shout out to Ohio, shout out to Detroit, and shout out to California who produced those 4 individuals. But California, Blood, Crip, GD, Latin King, no other black group, no other geographical group got in the AB's way, ever. The only group that said, excuse my language, but this is exactly the sentiment, fuck them crackers, was Washington, D.C. Now, I get into this other part. Now, my man Rob, I'm gonna say my man because I'm saying that's how I talk. So my man Rob from Convict Inc. Shout out for him. Shout out to him for calling out them ABs that was on boys. Because they had, the ABs had a boy in Leavenworth they called Farrah Fawcett. Go Google Farrah Fawcett. Now, when I say they had the boy, I'm not gonna sit here and slander and do what some of the other people do and keep saying they was fucking the boy or whatever, however they want to say it. But they were definitely, at the very least, pimping the boy Farrah Fawcett. If you a person like me that know your prison federal history, you have heard of Farrah Fawcett. If you read the Hot House book, I don't remember if they mentioned Farrah Fawcett by name, but he does mention the homosexual with the long hair that looks like a woman. That is Farrah Fawcett. That is the AB's boy, personal property. Now, am I saying that they were having intercourse with Farrah Fawcett? I don't know. I've never watched homosexual intercourse in prison, nor on porn. But I do know that Farrah Fawcett was personal property of the ABs, and I do know that Barry Mills, I can't say that he had sexual intercourse with the faggy Dave from Atlanta, but Dave in Atlanta was Barry Mills' personal property. What do I mean by personal property? I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but personal property means don't touch it, don't bother it. It's mine, don't touch it, and he can rent it out. The same way with Rob mentioned, and someone else mentioned, that the Mexican Mafia dude had a boy that he lived in a cell with. Now, that's different. I ain't gonna get into all that. But to double back to what I was saying, Rob says that the ABDC war didn't end with the Lewisburg thing. Rob, the Lewisburg thing happened in August of '97. Let's all get on the same date. My homies got hit August of 1997. My homies in Marion punished the dirty white boys sometime in '96, which led to all of this. I heard my man Rob mention Mike Wagner. Mike Wagner to put some work in, excuse me, in the feds. He put some work in Marion more than once. Rob, do you know Mike Wagner checked in when he got the ADX? Mike Wagner flew on the same plane with Fly after the race ride in Marion, which was not between DC and the ABs, as the historians and the journalists and the National Geographic tell the story. What happened in Marion had something to do with the ABDC beef. This is fact. I ain't guessing on this one. So there's a guy by the name of Butch. He from DC. I'm not gonna go into talking about what type of person he is because I don't know him personally. I just did my research on him. But my men, Opio Moore, Fly, Zulu, Wayne Perry, all these dudes that are my homies, they know this guy. Now, this guy took it upon himself, and I believe it was out of fear, to crack an old white man in the head with a radio and a pillowcase. That's the way I get the story. Bow! He did it in front of the police. In prison politics and prison law, this is called a check-in move. Like, you really not trying to work. He did it to go to the hole. Marion was a lockdown zone at the time anyway. So he hits the white guy in the head with the radio and the pillowcase. Police, he do it in front of the police. They immediately lock him down, right? This guy was not an AB or a dirty white boy. This guy was just a regular white guy. Don't believe that everybody got to be with a car. This was a regular white guy that was cool with everybody. He should have never been attacked. He got attacked. The dude checked in. They ended up locking Fly down, which is really formality. They take you from one unit, put you in another unit. But the unit's already locked down. But Fly was coming out for rec with ABs at the time. I believe he was in the unit with a guy by the name of Big Mac. Anybody who know ABs know who Big Mac is. And he was also in a unit with Mike Wagner. Now, together, they probably could have dog Fly, but that's not what happened. But they get a beef to my man Lil Man and a couple other homies that basically dog dirty white boys on the yard. Even if we go back to the scenario with John Gotti. Now, I got a homie, I ain't gonna say his name because he don't like this internet shit at all. He actually knocked John Gotti out in Marion. Now, when I say knockout, I don't mean it like in a boxing ring where boom, a 10 count. The homies and the ABs got into it. The homies and the white boys got into it. I believe they was dirty white boys because remember, wasn't a lot of ABs moving around there at that time. Well, one of my homies, and I ain't talking about the situation about the chain getting taken. That's another story when John Gotti got beat up on the rec yard and they took the pictures of him, and the dude from Philly that run with the homies as Muslim, he did that. That's really not a straight up DC joke. But I mean, when the blacks and the whites got into it on the T, I believe the homies was housed on E range. Let me double check that. Don't take that as a fact. But my homies was housed, they had us. After that 1997 joint, the homies were housed on a certain range. The homies that had been there had been there. I believe it was E range. But nevertheless, my homie said John Gotti wasn't no sucker. He said, but I did have to knock him out. And he said he came out, he came right back out and he was rolling. And remember, John Gotti was isolated. John Gotti was by himself. He didn't have no help other than the white boys. And when I say white boys, I don't mean specifically the AB. He got with the ABs at one point in time, but he also was cool with the dirty white boys. We gonna ask Rob about that too. But Mike Wagner checked in on his way to ADX, and the people who informed me that he checked in didn't say that he was checking in because he was ducking DC. They say he was ducking Burry Mills in them. How true that is, I don't know, but I do know that he checked in. Now, the reason I say that the AB and DC black conflict ended in Lewisburg, I'm only talking about putting in work. I see Rob say no, they wanted it to continue, so he mentioned the Leavenworth incident. I ain't knocking him for that Leavenworth incident. I spoke to two homies this morning that served over 50 years in prison, was in Leavenworth. I mean, I even asked Rob last night when he was on live, I asked him about Coleman Bay. He said, oh yeah, I heard he was there forever, but he really didn't talk like he knew him. No disrespect to Rob, that's cool, he don't got to know him. But he know Don Juan, which is another one of my homies that has a name. He knew him personally, and he was in Lewisburg with him and knew exactly who I was talking about. I don't fully understand why he don't know who Coleman Bay was Although Coleman Bay moved in secrets and silence in the penitentiary, but he had been there forever. You cannot talk about a black man that had any power in Leavenworth and don't mention Coleman Bay's name, Earl Coleman Bay. He is even mentioned in Pete Early's book, The Hot House, which many white people consider to be the best prison book ever. I don't consider it to be the best prison book ever because I found, and now that I have a YouTube channel, I'm gonna point out, I found some inconsistencies or inaccuracies in the book. But overall, the book was one of the best prison books written by a non-prison guy. Let's put it that way. Because there are some things in there that is absolutely not true. I asked Rob last night on his live, and it's for any prison expert. Name one dude out of Washington, D.C. that the Aryan Brotherhood or the dirty white boys or the slow riders or the neo-Nazis or any other white group. Name one person from Washington, D.C. that they put under in Leavenworth. I challenge any of you. It didn't happen. It's not going to happen. They not even going to play with the homies in Leavenworth, bro. Not at that time, not in the 92 time when the homies ran the Crips and the Bloods all the way over the wall. Remember, they jumped on one of my homies. Moments later, two of them was in a box. My homies are still alive, so this is not a pissing contest. Say, oh, my homies is the toughest. I'm saying, when y'all talk about Leavenworth, bro, I was in Leavenworth before, and as I told Rob, I was in building 63. The building that they say the ABs was in. We was in that building. We was in that building in the summer of 2001. We were in that building. Do you think Barry Mills, T.D. Bigham, Tommy Silverstein, any of them could have done something with 80 of us? I don't think they could have done that with 80 of us. Now, I challenge any of y'all to the Leavenworth thing, right? Talk your shit, Brick Squad. I challenge any of y'all to find one guy from Washington, D.C. that was smashed in Leavenworth by the ABs. I'm gonna leave the dirty white boys out of it. But if y'all wanted to, y'all could bring it in. But name one Washington dude that got smashed by the ABs or any other white group in Leavenworth in the history of it being a penitentiary. We'll get back to the rest of that later. Now, he said that the ABs, which I believe they was trying to flunk the dirty white boys, and the dirty white boys took the table. I didn't know that. However, I went and asked my homie. I went to one of my sources, and they corroborated everything Rob said. They said, yeah, the ABs did lose their poker table to the dirty white boys, and that was the changing of the guard. However, he said that they wanted it to go on. I'm arguing that they didn't go on, whether the dirty white boys did it or not. You dig what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna sit here and sneak diss Rob or sneak diss the dirty white boys, but I will say this. If the dirty white boys would have moved on Air Homie in Leavenworth at that time, it would have been a slaughter. Reason why? It's not a bunch of ABs. It's a bunch of dirty white boys. Dirty white boys would have got hit all over the nation, Rob. You know that. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about y'all like y'all suckers. I'm sure y'all would have got busy. I'm sure y'all would have done something, but bruh, it's over 10,000 of DC guys all over the feds. I don't know how many it is in the penitentiary. Bruh, I don't think y'all would have been able to stand that pressure right there. Now remember, the ABs get away with the shit that they did because they sneak and do it and hurry up and do it, and then they done it, then they locked down. So, you said that, I want to say you said Mike. Whoever you said was supposed to roll, they didn't roll. All right, cool, I give you that one. That makes sense. But I'm saying that there was no more straight up rocking and rolling after Big Al told. Now, you mentioned that they wanted it to go on. Remember, DC guys and ABs, real ABs. Forgot Gibson first name. Gibson's still alive. He in ADX, he ain't a rat. Snail's still alive. He in ADX, he ain't a rat. T.D. Bigham's still alive. He in ADX, he ain't a rat. There's one more that I'm forgetting. Mexican Mafia dude, Ronnie Vecino, he's still out there. He's still alive. Him and Fly had a knife fight when the Barry Mills shit happened at McNeil Island. And yeah, Rob, Convict Inc. Fly, I think you misunderstood whatever you were saying about Barry Mills and Fly, because Fly and Berry Mills had speaking relationships from McNeil Island to Atlanta to Marion to ADX. In fact, when Fly got sent from ADX to Marion, he had a conversation with Berry Mills. Berry Mills asked, before this Leavenworth, this Lewisburg thing jumped off, Berry Mills asked Fly, yo, I thought we had a truce. I thought DC and AB, we was cooler. Fly said, man, we ain't had no problem with the ABs in Marion. He said, my homies jumped on the dirty white boy. So that's a mistake. And Al Benton really ain't want to rock and roll with the killing in Lewisburg because he sent at least 2 kites back to ADX saying, are y'all sure it's DC? Are y'all sure it's DC? Al Benton knew goddamn well they couldn't kill no homies in Lewisburg and go nowhere else in the system. I don't even know where Al Benton rat ass went after the killings. But no AB ever bust another play on a guy from DC in no other open compound. Now, in ADX, there's been skirmishes, but there's been no killings. But Berry Mills, until the day he died, Silverstein and Bigham and the rest of them was out there with other homies, and it's not going down like that. It's only been 2 murders in ADX history. One was on the rec yard, one was in the rec area of the step-down unit. So they not doing no whole bunch of knife busting out there, bro. Silverstein died of natural causes, basically. Died of old age and health issues. I think that's what I wanted to point out. But what I want to say to my man Convict Inc. is that I dig what you saying about the ABs trying to run the yard from building 63 and whatnot, right? But nobody got hit, bro. And you mentioned that it was an A bill too. Remember, after Al Benton started telling, they took all the ABs off the main line, right? So what ABs could have put some work in? They almost killed OG Mac out there. Oh, that's true. Did y'all have some MD dudes with y'all? For sure, bro. You can't have nothing go on in the federal system with DC and some Maryland person, be it Baltimore or suburban Maryland person, don't be with it. And a lot of Maryland dudes, specifically Baltimore, was Moors. Shout out to the B-More homies. But I talked to Fly this morning, and he mentioned a dude out of Detroit named Big D. I believe that was his name. Shout out to Big D from Detroit. He said he rode with the homies all the time. Shout out to Detroit. I didn't know that. That was a back in the day joint. Baltimore always rocking. Baltimore always rocking. You could say that 2-3 more times, V. That's a true bill. Every story from Tone to Fly to Eddie Mavis, Baltimore was there. Baltimore, St. Louis, and New Orleans. I gotta give him that. I gotta give him that. But now Fly done told me something about Detroit and Ohio. He was like, them guys rode with us, but they were Moors. Well, you say how are DC blacks different from New York, or let's say Cali blacks? Remember, DC blacks is a term that the feds made up. So I don't know how to really say that they're different, but what is different about DC guys is that we come from a state prison type environment, the Lorton guys. I ain't talking about your federal guys, your Anton Whites, your Tony Lewis Seniors, your Kevin Grays, your Wayne Purries. Like, although Wayne Purry did time in Lorton, though. He did time in Youth Center and maybe Marshall, but he did Lorton time. So Wayne is a different type of breed of Lorton nigga. He did Youth Center time and then he did Fed time. But New York guys and Cali guys that are black, they have different allegiances, I'ma say. A Cali guy in the Feds, usually he's a Blood or a Crip, maybe a GD. I mean, my bad, maybe a BGF, maybe a Muslim. If he Muslim, we're gonna exclude it because he may have a different alliance. But Blood, Crip, BGF, although there's not a lot of real original BGF. Most of the BGF people you find now is the Baltimore BGF. I'm not gonna disrespect them, but that is not the George Jackson BGF. Y'all do know that. That's not Black Power BGF. That's gangbanging, Crip and Blood BGF. And anybody in here from Baltimore that know, correct me if I'm wrong, but Baltimore BGF is not on Black George Jackson time. That's they gangbanging. That's a hell of a squad right there. B-More, DC. Detroit, St. Louis. Yeah, that's a hell of a mob. Muslims run different than BGF or DC. Yeah, Muslims not supposed to have no gang affiliation technically, but we gonna leave that alone. But yeah, the Cali dudes, black or not, they gonna fall in the BGF, Crip Blood, or something else. Every now and then, you might go to a place where the Cali dudes gonna rep a different part of Cali. True Bill, we still got some old law brothers, 276 law. You are absolutely correct about this. Current BGF, bruh, and that's no disrespect to the BGF that come up out of Baltimore on the East Coast. That is not Doc Holliday and them crew. That is not George Jackson. That is not California BGF, bruh. That is not black nationalism. That is not revolutionaryism. That is like gangbanging. Yeah, you can make the issue Cali blacks and New York blacks, but New York blacks and Cali blacks were never called that. Like the feds gonna call those guys New Yorkers. He's from Brooklyn, he's from Harlem. They might call it the New York cop, but you have white people that are from New York. You have white people that are from Cali. The feds never seen a geographical place where there were no white people from the place. At least not in prison. You don't need no gang. All you need is a Lord. Well, you gonna be screaming. You would be screaming, "Lord, help me!" in prison. You would be running and screaming, "Lord, help me, please, Jesus!" while they putting that knife in you. So you could talk that shit somewhere else, bro. This a real station. This a real channel. We talk about real shit. All that you don't need nothing but the Lord. You'll need everything that the Lord had to offer you when they get to putting that knife in your ass and you screaming, "Lord Jesus, help me." Tell that shit to somebody else, bro. That I don't believe nothing you saying. I seen the toughest nigga run across the compound with 80 holes in them. I don't care about nothing you saying. Nothing you saying is realistic, bruh. Take that shit to the TD Jakes channel. I ain't even no preacher made it to Victorville, but you said you seen him get ran off the yard behind that? Who ran preacher off the yard? I never heard that. I appreciate it, Jermaine Wilson. I just be talking sometimes. Give my man likes up. Salute, salute. Yeah, I know preacher, but who ran him off the yard? Who ran him off the yard? Knife work is another ball game. Bruh, he talking about Lord Jesus, bruh. You'll be leaking on a gurney, getting on a helicopter, talking about Lord Jesus, help me get to the hospital. All that shit you talking, that Lord Jesus, bruh, that thing don't work when that knife get to slinging. You better be Lord Jesus, help me. How long did I did? I did 17 years in prison. I went to prison at 16. I stayed in Lorton. I stayed in Lorton till 20. Matter of fact, the day before my 20th birthday, they sent us to Ohio. Like, I'm born on the 19th of June. On June 18th. On June 18th, they sent us to Ohio. They backed up a bunch of buses. They cleared out the whole unit. And they sent us up there on like 3, 4 buses on that highway. I never forget it. KD said Jesus told his disciples to sell your clothes for a sword. That is Bible law. This around the same time. C Gutter got into it with the LA car in that water. Asked Tone about this incident. Oh, so you talking like when I first came home, 2009, 2010, C Gutter got into it with the LA car. What happened with that though? I asked Tone, I know Tone and Titus and Mario and Black and Larry, man, it was a mob. DC had a mob in that water back then. Ain't nobody play. And we had already got into it with the LA guys before. Ain't nothing happened out there, man. Bro, they just talking. Home from 15 years myself. Went in at 20, came home at 35. Well, you did a number. I went in at 16, and I came home at 33. I'm bone medium right now. My bone medium right now. He'll be home soon. All right, who is your brother? Hey, if you had a first round draft pick, who you taking and why? Allen Iverson or Kobe? I'll take Kobe because Kobe bought more championships. Crip car got at him behind the wall. Tone, Larry, Moe, and Titus was there. I remember that era. So that means Black was there, Jamal was there, Applehead Rob was there, Los was there. That was a mean mob out there. They Ed Gutter out. Oh, they punished him? New York car. How many New Yorkers were there? Wasn't no East Coast thing? DC ain't help them? How did that go, mentality? Salute, Jermaine Wilson. He say, man, you as all of us black men, we all got a story to tell. Salute to all your brothers who made it home, who can tell a story that can be passed on. That's a fact. On the men, shorty, you gotta know God go to war for you. Just how you thinking, you will get busy. All right. Well, remember, Florence is a complex. There's a ADX, which is a Supermax. There's a USP, that's where Tone and them came home from. There's a FCI. I've been to that FCI, although they kept us in the hole. And there's like a camp or a low. So that's a federal correctional complex. They call it a FCC. You already know to get the ADX, you got to have some type of serious, high-profile case in the beginning, like a Unabomber or El Chapo. If you're a regular, or Wayne Perry went straight there, although he didn't go straight there from the jail. What he did was they kicked him out of the jail. They sent him and toughened him to Quantico somewhere. And a lot of people don't know that Wayne may have spent a year or 10 months in Marion, like in 1995 or 94. He spent a few months in Marion before they finally opened up ADX. Like Titus may have been one of the first DC guys to go to ADX. He went to ADX from Marion after they had he stayed in Marion after the Leavenworth murders. And y'all know who them Leavenworth murders was about. Them Leavenworth murders was about the Crips and the Bloods. That was LA. Put two of them in the ground. I ain't necessarily saying Titus did, but two LA niggas died that day. And the rest of them tried to run the wall. They was willing to get shot not to take that knife. Now ask anybody about that. Look up the 1992 Leavenworth riots. That's how it's written in the papers. They CNN covered the story. They didn't give it. They didn't get into blow by blow because the feds weren't trying to tell the information blow by blow. But that's Titus. That's Joe James. That's Tonio Jones. That's Lala. Like that's a mob. They ain't play no games. That's that squad. They say, nah, he was on Crip time, so he had to abide by Crip rule, but the men put him on point. Oh, so C Gutter was on Crip time. Oh, if he on Crip time, then it is what it is. It ain't nothing nobody can do for him if he on Crip time. Hey, bruh, I don't take that Big U. So Big U is a bully to niggas that's scared. Like, I don't have nothing against Big U. I don't care nothing about him one way or another. Big U wouldn't be no threat or no problem to me and my homie. What part of Florence had a little ride? The penitentiary, the ADX ain't had no damn ride. If you talking shit about DC and not on a federal compound, you don't mean that shit. That might be true. I'm speaking nonsense. Define nonsense then before I cuss you out. Because I am going to cuss you out if you don't know what you're talking about. Everybody come over here talking stupid, I'm going to cuss them out. Damn. My man Jawan said, to see that you have to be a flunky to somebody else's rulership is crazy. They can send you on a move that doesn't make sense, but you have to do it because that's the life you chose.